I spent a year catching up in my homeschool, and it was a major mistake. I'm going to tell you what I learned about learning gaps and how that changed my mind so that now I don't even think that learning gaps are a thing. Seriously, learning gaps aren't even a thing. It doesn't exist in your homeschool. It doesn't exist for anybody because, well, what is a learning gap? A learning gap is a discrepancy or a difference between what your child knows versus what they're supposed to know at a certain point in time. Did you catch that? What they're supposed to know? This is coming back to expectations once again. And if you follow this rabbit trail down a little ways, you are going to see that whoever set these expectations for what your child needs to know at this point in time, they created these subjectively. They're completely arbitrary. What your child would have been expected to learn 10 years ago would have been different. And what your child would be expected to learn 10 years in the future would be different. These expectations were actually set up so that large groups of students could be judged against each other. But we already know that's not the purpose of assessment. It's not about judging our children, and this is not something that we are meant to be bringing into our homeschool. So if you feel like that fear, the worry, the shame, the guilt that your child is not learning enough, you're not doing enough, they're going to have learning gaps and they're not going to have a successful education. If those fears are popping up in you, then this video is for you because we need to let go of those expectations and the pressure that we're putting on our children to learn a certain thing at a certain time. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Natalie Burns, and my whole mission here is to support homeschooling moms like you to find the freedom to reflect who you are as a family through the way that you teach so that you can create deeper connection with your child. Some of you may already know that I have a background teaching high school before I left my job as a public school teacher and instead decided that I really was drawn to starting homeschooling with my own children. So naturally, as any teacher would, and if you're a teacher, you know, I set out to find the best curriculum that I could find for what we needed, and it just so happened that some of these books had like 180 lessons, which is basically your target for however many lessons that you can maximum reach in a year, because we have things like holidays and sick days and things. So I figured, this is pretty standard. That's good. We'll go with it. Well, a couple of years ago, when our older two were starting more formal, kind of structured learning, our 2-year-old ended up having a giant emergency, and we had to take him to the hospital where he actually had 3 brain surgeries over the course of that winter. As you can probably imagine, this was a huge surprise, and life is no short of surprises. However, this was a pretty big one, and we had to just stop everything, drop it all. We had the older 2 children with my mom, and she did a wonderful job taking care of them. And I gave her the books and I said, I don't know if you're going to be able to do these or not, but here they are. And she did a few. Mostly, though, they unpacked this from an unschooling perspective, which was so good for them at that young age, and I'm really glad. However, when we came out of living at the hospital for over a month and we were starting to get back into like what life was looking like, and we were looking at that healing journey for our youngest, I looked at these books and I thought, there is no way that we are going to get this done in time, because we had basically just taken like a month off. And I knew that, well, I guess if we go through the summertime, we can start in September again at the regular time that we would. If you have ever experienced traumatic circumstances or big emergency events in your family, you know that yes, you have to take that time for the event. You also need to take some time after to like recoil and allow that to just like settle in and let that dust settle in to find your placement and your footing again. So I wasn't really expecting that. We ended up changing things up a lot from those books. We ended up doing a lot of video lessons. They watched a lot of Brain Pop Junior. We watched documentaries. We just did exploring, lots of games. And these are super valuable ways to learn. And yet for some reason, I was feeling so guilty that I wasn't going to finish these books in time. And by the time we finished those books, it was actually into October, and we didn't start the next grade level until November. And I thought, okay, well, I'll use next year to catch up, which was now the 2023 year. I thought I'll catch up in this year. I never did, because guess what? You end up throwing in a week of Thanksgiving curriculum and, oh, we're gonna go away, so let's just like really learn about the culture of where we're going. And next thing you know, we are ordering our next year's books in December. And this really challenged me because I had to rub up against those old belief systems that I held, that your new grade year must start in September. I wasn't trying to do this, but I definitely was communicating this belief system onto my children, and they were starting to feel stressed. Like, we're behind, we need to catch up. I need to do 2 lessons today so that I can catch up. And it was stressful, and it was not helpful to anybody. And it wasn't the perspective of learning that I wanted to instill in my children. I wanted to instill a joy for lifelong learning. So I made a huge change, and I started calling them levels instead of grades. And I said, just whenever we're done this level, we're going to move up to the next one. No big deal. And everybody just kind of took a big collective sigh of relief. And we started to enjoy ourselves a little bit more. So admittedly, we didn't start the grade 2 and 3 books in September. We started them in December. And yet this year, I don't care. It's okay with me. And I hope that would be okay with you too, because we don't need to be stressed about learning gaps for our children. Really, it doesn't come down to what they're learning at a specific time. It comes down to the process of how they're learning. I took that season of time to really unpack with my children a lot of psychology and a lot of social emotional learning. And now they understand themselves. They understand what is getting triggered when they get frustrated by something, and they know how to communicate that with me or their dad, and they know how to overcome that obstacle and get going again. They are so much more relaxed around the whole experience. They work together well. They work independently well. It really was a valuable season to invest that kind of learning into. So I just want you to be encouraged that there is no set way that your child needs to be going about doing things. They don't have to learn a certain piece of content at a certain time. Unless, of course, they have certain requirements for like university, then you'll definitely want to prioritize those. But really, that's what it is. It's a priority for their goals in life. It's not they have to or they're supposed to in order to have a successful education. When your child understands how they think and how they learn, you've just equipped them with the power to learn anything that they could ever want to at any point in their future. If you focus on instilling a love and a joy for learning and exploration and wonder, then that's going to make the process a lot easier and faster in the long run. So if this sounds like something that you would like to get to the other end of too, and you're not really sure how to do that, I would love to walk you through that process. I actually am super excited to be sharing with you a new membership that I'm just launching. It's called Teaching Inspired, the homeschool community for personal refreshment without obligation. You heard me. This is not one of those community groups where you are expected to feed into others. This is where you can come to be fed, to be inspired. You're not obligated to anybody else. This is about you, and I'm using this membership as a way to serve you. Teaching Inspired is the only type of community membership that uses teaching themed workshops and challenges coupled with weekly action oriented coaching support to provide a done for you experience in your homeschool. Find out more at homeschoolteachingsimplified.com/teaching inspired. If you want to teach your child to think outside of the box, then stop comparing them to what is inside the box. Your old ways of viewing learning and what that means may no longer be serving you and your child in your homeschool. It's okay to let those go and to change your mind about how you want to approach your teaching. Well, that's all for this video. I hope that you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.